excited about it. Okay. Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me. Thanks everybody for coming. Such a lovely crowd. Really nice to be here. Well, we talk about two things that sound similar, Bitcoin and Bitfilm, so you might think they have something to do, which is originally not true. They're quite different things. So my talk will also be kind of have two halves, because Bitfilm, it's a company that I started in '99, a long time ago. And what we do today, we did all kinds of stuff at the edge between film and interactive media. Today the company is basically doing two things. We organize a film festival. We have been doing this for 13 years now. It's always about digital film. The concept always slightly evolves, and this year we try out something with bitcoins, which I will go more into detail in the second half. We did our opening show last week at the Jaga here in Bangalore. I don't know if anybody could go there, but all the films are online, so you have not really missed anything because you can watch all films online. So that's the Bitfilm Festival. We also have a kind of commercial production arm. So we work a lot now in the last month with Indian animators from Bangalore. So we are based in Germany, Hamburg and Berlin, and we usually work for European clients. But the quality, and especially the ratio of quality and price in India, is unbeatable. So we love to do it here with Indian animators. So that's the two things we do in our company. And lately we have done a lot of things with Bitcoin. I've personally been quite fascinated by Bitcoin. Is anybody not familiar with Bitcoin at all? Has never heard of it? Okay. Good, yeah. That's completely all right, because it's very new. It's absolutely early stage, and it's absolutely yeah. I mean, it's very fascinating. I think so I think the first half of this lecture, of this talk, I will mainly talk about Bitcoin. And if I say anything wrong, there are some very clever gentlemen here to correct me, because I'm definitely not a tech guy. So if you really want to know how Bitcoin works on the mathematically and cryptographic software level, I have not really an idea. The good thing is I don't have to. I'm just a user. So I will talk mostly about the economic and political implications. But if you have any questions, there's Benson and other people from the Bitcoin group here in Bangalore who will definitely be able to answer your questions more into detail. What I will do, the other thing I also do a little bit, well, as my political activity, is this political magazine called Blink, and we usually have one focus topic. This is our fourth issue. It's the first one we did not only in German, our mother tongue, but also in English, because we wanted to reach the international Bitcoin community, because it's all about Bitcoin. The whole magazine, 74 pages about Bitcoin. So I don't really have any presentation or anything with me, but I think my idea was I just use this magazine, I just scroll with you through it as a guideline, because well, most of the interesting aspects that we think interesting are covered in that magazine. If you want to know more, I mean, you feel free to download. I may also give you the link. I mean, usually it has a price, but as I'm invited here, of course, I'm happy to give you this PDF as a present. So if you give me your email addresses, or if the CIS has it, I'm happy to share this with you. So as you see the cover, it's a big pizza, because there's this legend that in 2010, which is 1 year after Bitcoin was first initiated, so it's a really new project. It only exists for 4 years. And in 2010, it was the first time that was really some real transfer being executed. And the price for 2 pizzas then was 10,000 Bitcoins. With the value of today, I think the Bitcoin has even risen since I was in $17. So these 2 pizzas would be $170,000. So you can see how the exchange rate of the Bitcoin has gone up in the last 2 years or 2.5 years, which is quite interesting. So here I tell a little pizza story. This is how we introduced the magazine. On the left-hand side, this is an ad, but it also has something to do with the production that we made for a Bitcoin marketplace. I will show you that one later. I shall show it early. I don't know. Maybe I'll show it later, I think. So this is a table of contents. So we have all kinds of authors from the Bitcoin world, developers, but also economists and people from different countries. And this first introductory article mainly, it gives a good introduction to Bitcoin, and it puts this kind of controversial question: is Bitcoin the new gold? Because in certain circles that are critical about the current money system, especially the so-called Austrian school of economy, people are mostly in favor of a new gold standard, as we had in the 19th century, which has the big advantage that governments cannot just print money, because they do all kinds of, stupid things with those money. Money gets less and less in value, so it's really bad for the normal people. So some people say we should go back to gold or silver standard. And Bitcoin has, in a way, many qualities that precious metals also have. It's scarce. It can be divided into small parts. It can easily be carried. All these things, why gold and silver have naturally evolved as money. I mean, before, of course, cattle was used for trade or maybe whatever, these shells and, all kinds of stuff has been used in history as a trade medium, which money is. And simply the best was always gold and silver. So for the last, 5,000-6,000 years, gold and silver have always been the money of the market, that the market produced. Then governments try to manipulate that, and banks try to manipulate that, and give out just paper notes, which of course makes life a little bit easier, changing. But there's also lots of room for manipulation. And in the last 40 years or so, there was no backing at all for the money we have. We call it fiat money, from the Latin, there shall be money. So it's just created out of thin air. And it creates a lot of damage. I mean, governments can easily make debt and have just print money without any value against it. So the normal people who cannot speculate, who don't work for banks, their money is getting worthless, and that's a huge problem. Especially in Europe, we feel it a lot now with the euro. And so people are looking for an alternative. And the people who have developed Bitcoin, they definitely have a background in Austrian economic school. They also have a background in cryptography, because that's what Bitcoin is based on, and open source software, peer-to-peer. So there are lots of concepts have been proven to work really well. Let's say open source, some of the most successful softwares on the internet, like the operating system Linux or the service Apache. They're not commercial products in the usual sense, but they've been developed by an open source community, just like Bitcoin. And also this peer-to-peer principle is very successful when you take, for instance, something like BitTorrent. I mean, in the early stage of file sharing, when people would like to download music for free, I will not judge this now. I just say there was a time when we had central servers like Napsters, and when then the content industry wanted to go against this piracy or file sharing, they just had to close down Napster, and that was it. But now there's no central server anymore. There's just a number of nodes. It's distributed over the network, and that makes all those file sharing systems that we know, well, especially BitTorrent, makes them pretty invulnerable against any government or legal action. And the same is true for Bitcoin. So there is no central bank for Bitcoin. There is no company. There is no institution. It's just a protocol. It's just like the internet protocol. And there are a number of software developers who carry on developing that software to make it better and better. There are many users now. Well, not really many. We're really in a very, very early stage. I think estimates are around 100,000 people in the world use Bitcoin. I just heard at a Bitcoin conference. Not much, but also, a relevant figure. There are more and more startups who work with Bitcoin. There are more and more companies who use it. But, well, as I said, still we are in a very early stage, and nobody knows what will happen. The potential of Bitcoin, I think, is huge. It has all the qualities that good money should have. And, I will not go into the details of how exactly it works, because, just like when you want to use the internet, you don't have to know how the TCP/IP protocol works or packet switching works. I mean, people who develop the internet software, sure, they have to. But normal users, they just click on some buttons and the email is sent, and you don't really have to care how this works. The same is true with Bitcoin. The underlying cryptography, the underlying software development is very advanced, and you really have to be very good in mathematics and cryptography to explain how this all works. But as a user, it's super, super simple. It's basically for free to send it around the world. It works in seconds or minutes. You just transfer money around the world. And the amount of Bitcoin, I mean, the way Bitcoin is created is not by any central institution. That sense, now we have 1 million more Bitcoins, but it's kind of part of the software protocol. And this protocol is programmed in a way that every 10 minutes, a new block of, before it was 50 Bitcoins, now it has been reduced to 25 Bitcoins, is created somewhere in the world. And somewhere we'll find this. So it's kind of compared to gold mining. It's even called Bitcoin mining. Actually, what people have to do to get Bitcoins is to be part of that network and to provide computing power to the network. And this makes to make sure that the transactions are really secure. That's basically what many, many nodes in the network do. So you have to confirm that the one Bitcoin really moves from one user to the other. There's no central institution, but it's distributed over the network. And it's a kind of reward for giving your computing power into this rather tedious process. Every 10 minutes, 50 new Bitcoins will be brought to anybody. It's a little bit like a lottery, but the more computing power you put in it, the higher your chances are to get some Bitcoins. This is called mining. Is that good? Is that correct? Okay. 25, yeah. In November it was, and as you see this curve, yeah? It looks quite just the other way around that we're used to. Normally it's inflation, yeah? Normally the amount of money grows and grows and grows and grows. And the Bitcoin curve, I mean, yes, there are more Bitcoins, but the growth rate, it will be smaller and smaller and smaller until it reaches zero. And then the number of Bitcoins is reached. There's a maximum number of Bitcoins in this world, which is about 21 million. Just like there's a maximum amount of gold on this planet. And it gets more and more difficult to dig gold from the earth. And it also gets more and more difficult to mine Bitcoin. So there's many little similarities between Bitcoin and gold. Now the big question, okay, it's nice, yeah, there will be no hyperinflation ever, because it's simply not possible to just create Bitcoins in another way than this. So it's very likely that the value of Bitcoin rises. But of course the basic question is, I mean, why do Bitcoins have a value at all? I mean, why has anything a value? And we are so used to get our money from the government. And although this is just a note of paper, yeah, with some figures and Mahatma Gandhi or whatever, yeah? And why is it valuable? Well, because everybody accepts it. And why does everybody accept it? Well, probably in the long run, I think, well, the government somehow guarantees it, that it keeps a value. But, okay, in some countries it works. I think in India the rupee loses how much value every month? 15 or something? Annual, okay. Which is not that bad, but still, I mean, you have to get that money somehow, earn more or speculate. So definitely it's but in other countries, I mean, we have seen that. We have seen it in Germany in the 1920s. We have seen this in Brazil in the 80s. I happened to live there in the time of hyperinflation. We have seen it in Zimbabwe. So I would not trust the government that they really keep the value of the money, because it's usually not in their interest. Because if the money has piled up a lot of debt, so what's the best way to pay? Well, will they ever pay back that debt? I think this has never happened. Usually there was some kind of haircut, or simply the people who have given those loans, they were left without anything, or there was a currency reform. We had that in Germany, I think 3 times this century, in the last 100 years. And usually the poor people, the middle class people just save a little bit of money. They're the ones who lose. Yeah, the big banks, the big governments, the really rich people, they don't have a problem, and the government easily gets rid of all the debt. by inflation. Inflation is the easiest way to get rid of that. So that's why Bitcoin works differently. But why does it have a value? I mean, at the end, why does gold have a value? Yeah, it looks nice. You can make nice little rings, but otherwise it's pretty much useless. It just has all the quality that you need to be a good exchange medium. That's why gold and silver have become money. And Bitcoin has these qualities too. So if people start to discover this, and Bitcoins even have some more quality, because it's pretty difficult to transfer gold physically. Because it can easily get stolen. You cannot just transfer through the internet. So in our days, I mean, really working on a day-to-day basis with gold would be really, cumbersome and difficult. So Bitcoin has some advantages over gold and silver. So Bitcoin has its value. It's an intrinsic value. Yeah? It's not backed by any government. It's not backed by anything else. It's just the intrinsic qualities that Bitcoin has that makes it valuable. And as we have seen, 1 year ago, the Bitcoin was about €2, I remember. Now it's I think it's about 12. Is that correct? If it's $17. Yeah, but euros. I'm more used to euros. Sorry, but I mean, if it was €2 1 year ago, it's now 12. Pardon? 13. Yeah. So more than 6 times the value. So if you have invested your money in Bitcoins 1 year ago, hardly anybody did because it's a very risky thing. But it was probably the best investment of the last year. So the value rises. The question, of course, now it usually comes, well, only 21 million. That's not a lot. Yeah. I mean, if you want to buy all the products if you want to have a counterpart to all the goods and services in the world, 21 million doesn't sound like a lot. But actually the amount of money in the world is not so important. It's just the ratio of exchange. And actually the decimal point of Bitcoin, that's part of the protocol, can be moved. So in inflation countries, you have lots of time that the government just takes 3 zeros away to make the numbers a bit shorter, to make it a bit more, easier to handle. In the Bitcoin world, it will be the other way around, that you add zeros. So you push the decimal point the other way around, because otherwise, if you go and pay, let's say in Berlin, there's a place where you can buy burgers with Bitcoin. And now you may buy it for 0.5 Bitcoins, you'll buy a burger. But if the Bitcoin value goes up against the euro, one day this might be 0.005, and that's not very practical. So the designers of Bitcoin have decided in the beginning that there might be a time where you just move that decimal point. So these 21 millions can become 21 billions and trillions and whatever. Yeah, so it can be a huge amount of money, and it can be divided. So there will be enough bitcoins for the whole global economy, no doubt about that. This is a graph that's quite interesting. It shows all the cryptographic process. If anybody, is familiar with PGP, this public-private key things, when you want to send encrypted emails to somebody, you have your private key. You don't show it to anybody because it's private. And there's a public key you can show to everybody who wants to receive your mail. And in order to decipher, to read that encrypted mail, one needs just a public key. So it's a very clever way of encryption. It has more or less, it's dominating the encryption world. And the same principle is used for bitcoins. So you have this public key, which is kind of part of your account number. And it's actually pretty easy to open an account. You don't have to go to a bank. You don't have to approve. You don't have to show your passport or whatever. Show how much you earn. Nothing like that. You just don't download a software for free, or you open up an account on some service. So there's a wallet you can have on your computer, and there's also a wallet that can lie on somebody's server. A wallet is the Bitcoin name for the client that you use. It's this as if it was a wallet in your pocket. And with this wallet, once you download it, you have your personal Bitcoin ID. It's very long and cumbersome, difficult to remember. Is there any? How many digits does it have? 30 I don't know. It has many numbers and small letters and big letters. It's impossible to remember, but usually you just copy and paste. That's the way you do it. But unlike a bank account where you have usually one number and you use that all the time, you are identifiable by that number. The idea behind Bitcoin is that it's as anonymous as possible. So it's possible that for you to have your wallet, and for every transaction that you make, or every transaction when you want to receive transfer, you create a new account number. Because otherwise, I mean, if, for instance, we didn't do that. We just said, if you want to transfer money to Blink account, here's our account number. So theoretically, it can be tracked. Yeah, all the people who have transferred money to this account number, some whatever revenue service or the government could theoretically trace that and say, okay, obviously Blink has made so and so much money on this issue, so now you guys pay taxes. If you don't want that, if you think that your money is better in your pocket than in the pocket of some politician who then, whatever, buys nuclear bombs with it, or, I don't know, throws bombs on other people. If you don't think that it's such a good idea to give all your money to the politicians, I don't want to say that people should avoid taxes. I definitely will not say that. But in case you want that, of course, it definitely helps if all your money transactions cannot be traced to your identity. Or, for instance, there are some people, well, I don't do that, but some people want to buy drugs, which is illegal, and there are some websites where you can go with your bitcoins and buy drugs, and you're not identified by it. It's like paying cash. So these are definitely some, well, use cases of bitcoins, but by far not the only ones. I mean, like every innovation, most innovations has been driven by porn and illegal affairs, but that doesn't mean that it's limited to that. Quite the opposite. I think the big potential in bitcoins does not lie in this illegal transaction things. It definitely has those advantages, but it leads to a kind of very free market where the government does not interfere. And maybe we should come to the economic background of the whole Bitcoin thing. It's called the Austrian School of Economy because it was founded by some people in the 19th century in Vienna, and it's been developed mostly by people of Austrian origins, like Ludwig von Mises and Friedrich August von Hayek. But they mostly worked in the US after the war because they had to immigrate. Some were Jews, and not everybody was liked by the Nazis. So today, the Austrian School of Economy is much more popular in the US than in Austria. In Austria, hardly anybody knows it. Even in Germany, it's also not very well known. But it's getting more and more popular because there are the other schools of economy, like Keynesianism, who says that the government has to put money in the market to work against the crisis. And people have tried it, and it never worked. Whereas the Austrian economy says it's usually government interference in the market. It does not work, and better don't do it. Better let the powers of the market evolve freely. And the Austrian economists, they have predicted the big economic crisis of the 2030s, and they've also predicted the economic crisis of 2008. So it's they have a very good track record. They are not very popular in the state-run business schools because they're very critical of the state. They're very critical about the current money system. So they're kind of a little minority group. Well, I think they're right. So on the long run, I think people will listen to them. So if this one article here by a pretty well-known Austrian economist in Germany, he has no idea of Bitcoin. In the end, he says something about Friedrich August von Hayek, who was one of the most popular Austrian economists. He even won a Nobel Prize in economy. And he even in the 70s, he suggested as a way out of the current bad money system, he suggested a free competition of, to denationalize money. So he was against the monopoly that every state, every government would their own currency. He said this should be free. It should be like in the telecom industry. Yeah? And before that, in the early days, we had one big monopoly company, and the service was like that, lousy and expensive. And then there was liberalization of the market. Now we have many telecom companies, and there's competition. They have to fight for the customers, so the prices are much lower and the service much better. which usually happens when free force of the market come into play and government monopolies cease to exist. And Hayek says this should also be the case for the monetary system, which was a very kind of revolutionary idea in the 70s. But Bitcoin is exactly that. I mean, it's not a government initiative. It's completely private. It's not even commercial in a way, because the founders don't really get money for it. Many people work for it for free because they're fascinated by this idea of free money, free independent money that belongs to nobody else but the people. So usually many Bitcoin people, they refer a lot to the Austrian economy. There's this funny article here. I'd like to recommend this. Cheese Knives and Enlightenment, a guy from Berlin, who runs a bar in Berlin, but is also a good economist. He compares, the old money system to as if you would use a cheese knife to fix some screws, and when you finally get the right tool to it, you see how stupid you have been all your life by just using this stupid cheese knives for fixing screws, and a real screwdriver is so much better. And he compares that to Bitcoin, that Bitcoin is so much more convenient and so much cheaper and faster that when you discover that, you will ask yourself, how could I ever use this stupid banking system? I mean, we had the same experience. We wanted to transfer money from our German bank to India to pay our Indian animators. It was very expensive, very difficult, complicated. And then we convinced our Indian animator to accept Bitcoin. In the beginning, of course, he didn't know and he was a little bit hesitant. But then we said, okay, come on, we just transferred to you. And it was then 5 minutes. And the amount that we transferred him then in last year is probably now triple the value. So I think it was a very good deal for him. And when you once discover that, you will probably not want that old system again. It's a little bit like getting used to email and the web. You don't want fax anymore if you don't have to. I mean, you don't want to wait for letters. Okay, it's nice. So nice handwritten letters is a beautiful thing. But when it comes to efficient communication, I mean, email is definitely a step forward, just like Bitcoin is compared to the old money system. So he compares the old money system to some kind of religion, where you have to have some blind faith to some higher being, like be a god or a government. Whereas Bitcoin, you can be very, very critical. You can check the code, it's there, it's open source, and you don't have to have faith in anything. It's just trust that's proven by cold hard mathematics. So he said with Bitcoin, money has arrived in the Enlightenment age, finally. Talk a little bit about Berlin, about my friend Jörg. He runs this place called the Room 77. It was the first bar and restaurant in Germany which has accepted Bitcoin. So you can come there and pay with Bitcoins. So usually what we do, we have our Android phones, and on the Android phones you have various types of wallets. You just use it and open it, and shall we just demonstrate it maybe? You send me some Bitcoins. Maybe I should send you. So you just have this wallet here on your Android phone. It doesn't exist for iPhone. I don't know why. They're a little bit stupid, and usually you work. Maybe we don't have a good internet connection here with the. Oh, we do. Okay, yeah, we do. The euro cost is more than 13. Wow, that's great. Can you? And usually we because it's not so much fun to scan these or to type in these numbers. So there's a great invention called the QR code, like this. So this is my Bitcoin address. And if anyone who wants to directly transfer money to me, no, I want to transfer money to you, by the way, not the other way around. You just scan it, yeah? Every phone has a... Yeah, let's do it. So, send Bitcoins. Scan QR code. Okay, that is. Okay, I have your QR code, and now I give you, what do you want? 0.1 Bitcoin.
So I'm online as well.
You're offline? Okay, but send Bitcoins. Network fee. Okay. It should arrive soon. The only thing that takes a little bit is somebody has to prove that this has really taken place. Yeah, it's not between our two phones, but I'm sending it to the whole network, And I think when there's some mathematical equation that says when 6 nodes have independently confirmed that this transaction went correctly, then you can say, okay, it was probably okay. I did not cheat him. I really sent him the bitcoins, and I'm really doing this. You got it? Cool. That was fast, wasn't it? Okay. And imagine now this: if I were in Germany and he in India, okay, we wouldn't do it by scanning the QR code, but it would be more or less the same speed. And when we talk about day-to-day operations, day-to-day, being in the brick and mortar place and buying something as banal as a burger or beer, this is a perfect tool to do it. And of course, this bar is more or less a PR tool. Yeah? Jörg is a Bitcoin enthusiast, and he uses his own bar to demonstrate how Bitcoin works. And especially journalists, they love it. There was a lot of press coverage about the Bitcoin Room 77 in all the German media and international one too. It's also the place where we have a regularly monthly meetup, which is fun because at the end we all pay with Bitcoins, and and we drink a lot of beer and eat a lot of burgers, and usually there's one round on the house by Jörg. And now this is expanding. There was just one restaurant. Now I think there's an Italian restaurant, there's another bar, there's a record store. There's this whole area around this original ground zero has now evolved into a thing that they call Bitcoin Kiez. Kiez is a Berlin expression for neighborhood. So, maybe some words about the guy behind Bitcoin. Well, the inventor of Bitcoin is called Satoshi Nakamoto. Nobody has ever seen him. People have just communicated with him by mail, and then he suddenly disappeared 2 years ago. So this is definitely not Satoshi Nakamoto. This is an image of a ninja warrior I took from Wiki Commons, but it could be. This is Bitcoin in Japanese. This is correct. Well, there's a slight likelihood that Satoshi Nakamoto is not a real person. It's just a pseudonym mock-up made up by some people who did not want to be famous as the Bitcoin inventor. Just like everybody knows that Linus Torvalds invented Linux, so he's kind of the god of Linux. And sometimes it's not so. Some people don't want it. So I think they just made up Satoshi to be like a little bit in the shadow. And now all the people who now work on Bitcoin, for instance, this guy called Gavin Andresen, he's the lead developer. He claims not to have invented Bitcoin. He just arrived 2 years later, and he never met Satoshi. And I don't know if we should believe him, but well, he's a nice guy. He's a good programmer, and all the Bitcoin people are like that. Yeah, they all said, no, we arrived just 2 years later. No, we have not invented this. I don't know Satoshi. It's kind of their common. I don't know. They seem to have some kind of codex in that. Yeah. This is an ad for the Bitcoin convention, Bitcoin conference this year, May, in San Jose, California. If anybody has the money to go there, it will be probably interesting. I was at the London conference last year, which was really cool. I'll guide you a little bit through this magazine, and I think then we should probably go to questions and answers, because that's better than just hear me talking. This is we made a little making of about the film that we made about Bitcoin, which I'm going to show you later. Here's some character designs, and it was for a German marketplace, so we convinced them to really make fun of their own Germanness. Yeah, so it said that Germans have no humor, they're very efficient, like machines have no humor, so we proved, and the film is not funny at all, it's just, and there's this very heavy German accent. You will hear that, I will show you the film. This is about a song on Bitcoin. There was a songwriter from Austria, very funny, very nice song actually, I can play that later. This article again goes into this problem: why inflation is bad, why inflation makes the poor poorer and the rich richer. Very interesting article by an Englishman who has also made this great movie called Fiat Money, which explains this problem in detail. We also explain inflation and deflation. And this is a very interesting case study about what happened in Argentina. Argentina is famous for very bad monetary policy in the early 90s. They've just frozen the accounts of everybody. So you could not just get your money from the bank, and it was devaluated. It was really, really bad. And they're doing bad things again. And he suggests, why not use bitcoins? Because in Argentina, people the government even uses dogs now at the airports and border controls. to make sure that people do not escape over the borders with dollars. So they have sniffing dogs, and he says, well, nobody can sniff up bitcoins, and you can put on one USB stick, you can easily put $1 million worth of bitcoins and just hide it somewhere, and it's a very good way to fight against tyrannic governments. Here's a little ad about the Bitfilm Festival, which I will come to soon. We have some more articles about economic freedom and more general things. There's also an artist who has made a piece of art about bitcoins, love gold and crypto gold. A little bit kind of, little excursus into crypto anarchy, which is also a very interesting phenomenon. And these are two guys that I met at the conference in London, and they ran around with masks all the time, because as you might know, in the UK there are these surveillance cameras everywhere, so there's no privacy, and they really want to protest against, and they wore those masks during the whole conference. I think that was from my part what I wanted to say in general about bitcoins, and I'm happy to either answer your questions myself, or if I'm not able to answer them, give them to the Bitcoin experts here. Please, any questions about this? Yeah.
So right now the downside of Bitcoin is that you can't have very few use cases if you're not following the drugs or some type.
You have about 2,000. That's not that much, but you can buy a lot for bitcoins already.
Well, if you want to use Bitcoin for more conventional purposes, like getting food or groceries or whatever, paying rent, is it possible to liquidate your Bitcoins into a usable currency?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there are many ways to do that. There are exchanges where you can just, wire money, and then usually that takes a bit longer, but there are exchanges where you can exchange bitcoins into dollars or euros or whatever. And I think the most useful and fascinating thing is a thing called local bitcoins. It's a website where local traders who trade like cash for bitcoins. Yeah. For instance, if you want to buy bitcoins in Bangalore, or if you have bitcoins and want rupees, just meet Benson. I mean, you just meet him, and he will give you some bitcoins, and you give him rupees, or the other way around. That's more or less in all the countries. I don't know in which place worldwide. Well, usually there's a different price for selling and buying. I mean, of course, they make a profit on that. That's for sure. And then you can look it up. The market's very transparent. So if somebody asks for too much, you just go to the other trader. That's a good thing about it. So yeah. If you have some questions from all over the world through the streaming, I'll be happy to answer them too.
Yeah, how is it going to help the poor people? Like, say the farmers, they are not going to use any devices or something. So how is it going to help them?
Well, I think inflation hits the poor the most. Yeah, and if we can really successfully do something against the government ruining our money, this will definitely help the poor. Yes, you're right. I mean, until there will definitely take a long time until it's in the day-to-day life. When whatever farmers will go and buy their food with it. I think it's probably not very realistic. I mean, you never know. Yeah? I mean, also, who would have expected 20 years ago that the internet would be such a day-to-day thing for so many people? Yeah. That, grandmas, everybody would use internet. In 20 years ago, many people said, this is just for the nerds, it's very advanced, it's just a small group of geeks will use that, but not everybody. And it has really changed the world. But so who knows what will happen to Bitcoin, or maybe a successor to Bitcoin. I don't say that Bitcoin is the solution. It might be that there'll be a new Bitcoin that's even more developed. I don't know. But even today, I mean, let's just use this example of my animator who's here in Bangalore. I mean, I just pay him in Bitcoin, and he can keep the Bitcoins. I would recommend him because the value is really going up. And when he really needs it, when he has to pay taxes or pay food or whatever, he just goes to some Bitcoin trader and exchanges it to rupees. So it definitely helps this, normal, regular animator. Well, okay, I don't need any farmers in India, so I will not be able to. But who knows? Yeah, maybe someday people will buy their food directly from the farmer and pay bitcoins. I mean, there are all kinds of scenarios that you can come up with. I mean, I think the potential is huge. And you can buy lots of stuff. There's Bitcoin Store, and you can buy all kinds of electronics. And I think the prices are pretty compatible, aren't they? And you can buy alpaca socks. That's kind of a running gag in a way, because for a long time, in the beginning, most of those 2,000 products that you could buy were kinds of web hosting or IT service, something that had to do with the internet. And all of a sudden, then there was a shop where you could buy such a very analog thing as alpaca socks. That's why this Austrian songwriter called this song about bitcoins alpaca socks. Yeah? So, but there's much more to it. But you're right, we're only at the beginning.
I have two questions. Is this currency listed in the currency
Well,
market?
there are currency markets for Bitcoin. There are many exchanges. The most well-known is called MTGOX, but there are other ones, Bitstamp. There are many exchanges, and there's a market price through these exchanges. So there is a currency market for Bitcoin. I think, as far as I know, it's kind of a separate market. Yeah, if you go to the normal, Wall Street or wherever, people probably don't trade Bitcoin there yet. But some companies. Yeah.
That accepts it as a normal currency.
But how do you decide the face value of this currency against any other current currency?
That has come up through the evolution of Bitcoin. Value has been set based on how much would be. So based on the amount of Bitcoin, based on its on the last few years, as it has been coming about, the exchange has been functioning. Right now, it's completely determined by the demand and the supply. So if someone's willing to pay $50 for a Bitcoin, that's your current exchange rate. It's the same thing as a fiat exchange rate as well. If someone is willing to buy $1 from you for 10 rupees, that is the exchange rate. It does not necessarily mean that it's 52 rupees as stated in the foreign exchanges. It's the same thing with Bitcoin.
But that is a matter of the volume.
But this is not guaranteed by the government. That's the only difference. Right? So it's in a very nascent stage. It's in its 4th year. If you want to look at a practical application today, your skills can directly be exported to virtually any country on the planet without going through the hassle of trying to work out a payment methodology and setting up a regulated body that has more control over your own money than you have.
Yeah. Okay, so I mean, this concept is almost similar to the Obo money, I think, long before it came up. Obo money, you might have heard that.
Money was
California, this initiated in 2005. So that was what, you can, any currency, you can convert to the Obo money, and that money you can use for any further transaction. Okay. The only thing is that that was not listed in any of the currency market, so that you can't determine the face value of that electronics money. But that money you can use for exchange any kind of product across the world.
All right, Bitcoin is exactly like that. The only difference is that it's decentralized. Now, while there are several other virtual currencies that are controlled by a central server, Bitcoin doesn't have that constraint. So tomorrow, if a government decides to say that you cannot use that virtual currency in this country, that is it. You cannot use that any longer. For example, you cannot use PayPal in Pakistan. Right? And that is the difference. Bitcoin is PayPal. But the only difference is that no one really controls it.
So I just wanted to add a couple of things about your question about who decides the exchange rate. So currently Mt. Gox or MTGOX is one of the major Bitcoin exchange marketplace. And people consider that as to be the authoritative rate of Bitcoin. So most people will say that, okay, what is the rate? We'll just go to MTGOX website and check the rate. And how they calculate is they take an average of all the buying and selling. Yeah? So people register as users and then they say, okay, I want to sell Bitcoins at this rate. And somebody else registers and says, I want to buy Bitcoin at this rate. So Mt. Gox takes the average of all these and says this is the rate, that's the current rate.
But the volume is less than this calculation can be hacked anywhere, right?
No.
The volume is...
So it takes volume into account. The weightage of the price is includes the volume.
20 million, I mean, at max, the currency is going to be.
No, so what was the question about the volume actually?
The volume is the exchange of the, I mean, when you calculate any, right, any market price of any share or any equity, right? So.
Yeah, so basically,
it can be. The market can be manipulated right now.
Yeah,
Like with any beginning markets, it can be manipulated. But with any manipulated market, every market reaches a currency stability at some point in time. So even if it goes ahead to $100 or $200, at some point of time it will stabilize. A very good example would be what happened last year. Bitcoin's value rose from $2 to $30 in a matter of 5 days, if I'm not mistaken, and then it dropped back down to $5 and stabilized there.
Yeah.
So that stabilization will happen. We are currently a bit more stable right now, but once again, it is in its 4th year, so there's nothing much that can be told about it.
It was last year.
Yeah, perfect.
It was pretty stable here in the spring.
Right.
Then went up, now it has really risen. I think since we have launched our magazine.
Yeah. So it has gone up by 288% last year.
Okay. Yeah, sure. How do we do it? They type it and you say it? Yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah. What? It's coming. It's coming. So I'm very happy that we have questions from all over the world. Where does the question come from? Which? Yeah, but which country?
From India, actually.
India. Okay, cool.
So, a gentleman from Pune asks, one, about security. So, given that the most important thing is the wallet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And given that there have been lapses in security at, even including Mt. Gox, right? There have been security lapses. So, how, at least for your personal wallet, how do you ensure security? Do you have any tips for that? And secondly, how do you mine bitcoins? Any computer recommendations?
Okay. Well, when it comes to the personal wallet, it's very important to make a backup. So you have there's one file called wallet.dat, wallet.dat. That's the most important thing. Be sure to back up that. And maybe you can even write your private key, which you will probably not memorize, on a piece of paper and then hide that somewhere. And then you can always recover. Because what could happen? Because it's like cash, yeah. So if your computer is completely destroyed and you have not backed up it, your bitcoins will be lost. If you have backed up the bitcoins, that wallet, you can recover it on another computer. That's possible. And you can even back it up on a piece of paper. And I heard about some methods how to turn these strange long files into something memorizable, brain wallet. But so there are ways. More complicated, of course, is the security problem when it comes to the hot wallet of some services. I mean, there, of course, but that's like a bank service, of course, a target which many hackers wants to hack. And I just learned that bank servers constantly get hacked. It's simply that the banks don't tell anybody, so not to generate any mischief, and they just cover the loss. And in the Bitcoin world, yes, some servers have been hacked because the security measurements were not as good as they should have been. That's true. But that's more that the companies who come up with the exchanges, they of course should take care. They should take all the security measurements that also banks have for their online banking. But if, for instance, a wallet gets lost or a server gets hacked, it does not mean that the currency itself has any weak points. It's just like, if you lose your wallet, you would not blame the Bank of India because the rupee is weak. And if a bank gets if it's a bank robbery, you don't say, oh, the rupee's bad. You just say, okay, they should have more security personnel, and that's some journalists sometimes mix it up. They come up with stories about the big crisis of Bitcoin just because the server has been hacked. I mean, it's a new thing, and yes, not all the companies, these startups, have taken all the necessary security measurements, but it's getting better and better and better. I mean, I know that this company we work for, that runs this marketplace in Germany, where you have this charts, they invest a lot of money in security, and they're super, alert about this. The other question was mining. Mining. Forget it with a normal computer. These days are really over. You would probably spend more money on electricity than you get back for, because there are now so many computers in the network that the challenge, I mean, the hurdle way, what you need in computing power to have a serious chance. So there's, I think there was a time when graphic chips in clusters were useful, and now there's this new thing by Butterfly. I mean, I'm not a hardware guy at all. I just know it has become pretty expensive. You really need invest a lot of money in mining hardware. Otherwise, forget it. Yeah? A question from the live audience? Yeah?
Hi, Aaron. Just wanted to intervene with this question I had just before you start talking about banks. I was just thinking about how, just like how the first layer of the internet was AT&T funding, and bank transfers still happen to be a very profitable part of a secure network. It's internet until the bank, and then it's wired, and charges go from $10 to $25. There is no real internet banking when you're transferring money. So what do you think the response from the large corporation is going to be when bitcoins become a bit more prevalent? Will there be any more new legal light surrounding the issue of money, and when is Mahisho not gonna be so shy and take off his ninja mask?
Well, when governments and banks realize what Bitcoin really is, what the potential is, they need to be afraid, because it will take away power from them. I mean, banks are basically the banks that we know today, and companies like Western Union, who charge you 20-30% just to wire money from one country, they will be obsolete. They will be like horse carriage when the car was invented. So now they probably underestimated all the governments. I think there has even been a study by the European Central Bank, but nobody takes it so serious. So I hope that Bitcoin can reach a critical mass, and Bitcoin can be so convincing that nobody wants to, nobody can imagine to live without it. Just like the internet. I'm pretty sure the internet would have been forbidden 20 years ago by many governments and by many big corporations if they had an idea what could come out of it. I think we will definitely face some fights and troubles and legal battles and whatever. The good thing about Bitcoin is you cannot forbid it. It's impossible. It's just file sharing is forbidden. But so what? There are so many file sharings out there. Not that I like this idea of piracy so much. I'm creator, musician myself, but I mean just the potential that whatever governments do, whatever content industry players do, you simply cannot do anything against it. And that's the same with Bitcoin. So yes, there will definitely be hard times ahead of us, I think.
So all the transfer server locations are very secret?
No, not at all. I mean, actually, all the transactions are public. That's a funny thing. It's not that there's this very, secure transaction. No, it's a very public thing. This cryptographic code. What we just did, you can just look it up on any. There's a web server called blockchain.info, and if you know, let's say, Benson's number, and you just type in and look for it, you will see that somebody has transferred 0.001 bitcoins from a number to this number. So what we just did is completely transparent, completely public. The only thing that's not transparent is that this number belongs to Benson and the other one to me, as long as I don't put it on my website. So I can be very anonymous. It's the Bitcoin developers themselves said there are ways to trace it. If you let's say, if you buy a lot of drugs, and even if you have this different number every time, it's somehow possible to mathematically trace it. So if you really want to do some illegal business, they said, better use cash. It's safer to do dirty things with government money. Yeah, sure. Because that's Bitcoin. There is a way to kind of mathematically trace it. So if you really want to do dirty stuff, don't use Bitcoins.
This is a question going back to the mining. So the value or the complexity of Bitcoin mining is set in stone, as the mining process goes on. So whereas the price of computational power is not. That's something that fluctuates. So is it conceivable that we could have a situation in the future where it's because of the value of Bitcoin and the price of securing new Bitcoins as they get mined, if it's not profitable anymore, and could then the supply of Bitcoin before reaching its total limit kind of plateau because of that?
Well, first thing, it's not like that is set in stone, but quite the opposite. The more computers on the network, the more difficult it gets to mine bitcoins. There's this a parameter called difficulty, and that varies. So if there are less computers, it's easier to generate Bitcoin. So this really changes. And the mining process, one day, it's getting more and more difficult anyway. And one day it will be over. There will be no new Bitcoins, so no need to mine. And those nodes that are still very much needed to check the transactions, maybe they're not called miners anymore, maybe they're called auditors or some more boring word, yeah? And I think it's already the case. For instance, when I just wired some money to him, I added 0.00005, a very just tiny amount I added on top as a fee for the mining nodes. And I just learned that this is, in a way, it's voluntary, but I just learned that many miners now, or many of those nodes, they don't accept it if there's no transaction fee. So the business model for the miners will shift from mining new Bitcoins to making a little money on the transaction fees. So, and then I think it will still be profitable, sure. Yeah. And then maybe another question from the world.
So is there a case where the business has been shut down because they use Bitcoin?
Pardon?
Is there any case in the world the business has been shut down because they use Bitcoin? In some country you have to use only the currency which government says. If you do any other currency, there are reasons the government can shut down your business.
I think so. I know of a case of a trader in Berlin who's made a lot of trading things, and he's got a letter from the regulation authority saying if you want to keep on doing this, you need the official whatever stamp or blah blah, and it's very expensive. So he stopped doing that before this was resolved. And I'm pretty sure there were other cases, but I'm not so familiar with that. But we'll expect that. We'll see that. We will definitely see clashes between different governments and Bitcoin enterprises. My hope is that especially in free countries, the government will be smart enough to say, hey, wow, this is a huge opportunity for new possibilities, new economic growth, and we better keep this. We better let this grow and not interfere. I mean, especially in more liberal countries and more kind of wiser governments. I mean, I would expect that in China or in Iran or Pakistan, I don't know, that the government probably is completely afraid and doesn't do anything, and this will definitely not help the economy, yeah? Just like North Korea or so. But I don't know. Question from the world?
A few more questions, as a matter of fact.
How much time do we have, by the way? I wanted to also say a little bit about our funny festival, but
as long as the audience doesn't get bored, I think we can. So, but I think we should wrap up this part of the session. I guess in around next 10 minutes.
That's fine. Yeah. And if there are any questions, I mean, we'll definitely have a drink afterwards and sit on the lawn. And we can also ask questions like face to face and directly. Yeah.
And anyone who wants some snacks and some drinks, etc. There's stuff in the kitchen, so please go ahead and help yourselves. So a few questions. One, how easy is conversion of my local currency, and this is from India, into Bitcoin and vice versa? What all does it require? That's question one. Then a question about futures trading. Okay, Satyakama saying, in my opinion,
shall I answer the
futures-
first question first? Because I think I have answered it. I mean, there's no exchange in India so far, but I think people work on that. So the best way in India at the moment is, I think, through a local trader. And you find them on local bitcoins. I've just looked them up for Bangalore, and there are many. Yeah, not that many, but so you might, if you're in a faraway village, you might have to go to some other city. I don't know if it.
But in terms of buying bitcoins?
Pardon?
But in terms of buying
Yeah, that's the
bitcoins?
same. If you buy or sell, that doesn't matter. Usually a trader buys and sells, yeah,
Okay.
for different exchange rates, of course, but that's not the difference.
So there are traders in India.
Yes.
Excellent. And I'm guessing Benson and others will publicize so we can tweet that out too, since there are people asking. Okay.
Yeah.
Secondly, we have Satyakam asking, in my opinion, I feel futures trading is one of the reasons for inflation. How does Bitcoin handle it? And then there's one further question, again a bit on the legal side, okay, which is, how do I pay tax in India on Bitcoin transactions? What is the transaction value? So if I'm a trader accepting Bitcoins, and
I don't think that future trading is the reason for inflation. The reason for inflation is the fiat money system that we have. And there's as far as I know, no such a thing as a future trading market for Bitcoin. There was for a time a very successful Bitcoin site called Bitcoinica for a couple of months. And unfortunately, it was not very secure and got hacked and was a big disaster. But during that time when Bitcoinica was around, it was a little bit like a futures thing. People could bet on the development of the Bitcoin course. And that's exactly the time when what Bitcoinica contributed to the Bitcoin market was there was a period of relative stability. So if you see this period from February to May, where the Bitcoin core exchange rate has remained really stable, that was the big success time of Bitcoinica. It might be just a coincidence, but some people say, because usually speculation, it has a relatively bad image, but what it actually usually makes, it generates stability, yeah, because it gets more calculable, the risks are lower. So I don't agree with this future rates on inflation, but I'm not sure if there are any future markets for Bitcoin yet, but I'm sure there will be. But I think they have an important function in the market. What was the second question about paying taxes? Well, of course, you are obliged to pay taxes on Bitcoins, just as you're obliged. I mean, let's say if you have a bar and people pay in cash, you are obliged to pay the tax on every single rupee that you cash in. Now, I'm wondering which owner of a bar really declares every single rupee that he makes in cash. Maybe some people do. So, yes, theoretically, of course, you have to pay taxes for all your Bitcoins. Pardon?
the question is apart from paying tax, also about what is the transaction value. So how do you so for instance, if I say that if I'm selling beer for 50 rupees, okay, then that's a transaction value of 50 rupees on which I have to pay tax. Now, if I'm charging 0.002 bitcoins for that, then how do I say what value in rupees I have to pay tax on? So
I think you would take the exchange rate of that day. If on that day 1 Bitcoin is 700 rupees, and you gain a Bitcoin, you would say, okay, I've gained 1 Bitcoin, which has a value of 700 rupees, so I pay tax on 700 rupees. If then the next month 1 Bitcoin is 800 rupees, you probably have to pay tax on 800 rupees. But better ask a tax consultant. The good thing about this is it's like cash. Yeah, I don't want to encourage anybody to evade taxes, but it's definitely easier to do it with cash than with bank transactions, as everybody knows who is in the restaurant or bar industry. And Bitcoin is only cash, nothing else. Yeah, there's no. If you use a new number for every transaction, it's very, very hard to trace your bank transactions, your transfers. More questions, or shall we come to an end here and I'll tell you a little bit of our film festival. Is that okay? I mean, if you have more questions, yeah, feel welcome to ask them, but I think that second half also, I will make it short. And I also want, if you want, I can also show some films of the festival, yeah, if you like. But because they are not about bitcoins. There's one film about bitcoins I want to show. Well, the Bitfilm Festival. Well, there's this funny coincidence with the name. It's really just coincidence because we came up with this name much earlier than Bitcoin, and the festival has been around for 13 years. It's all about digital films. So this year we have 3 categories. One is about classical 3D animation, the kind of stuff you do with Maya, 3D Max, that software. We have another category for 2D animation. We have one for films that mix all kinds of techniques, also live action digitally. And we have one category with a strange name, Machinima, which are films that are shot inside computer games or virtual worlds. It mostly happens on the internet and in Hamburg, where we originally come from, and in worldwide places. There's a little mistake here because our opening event was in Bangalore, not in Hamburg. We changed that and we'll have 4 months of internet voting. Parallelly, people can also make their own microcinema events wherever they are. And then we'll have a closing event in Hamburg. And the opening and closing events are pretty much as festival are. No? We lit a lamp, traditional Indian style, last year in Hamburg, this year in Bangalore. At the end we have an award ceremony, screenings, workshops, all kinds of things that you like at film festivals. And also the whole procedure is, of course we get many submissions and we do a lot of research on the web, then we select the films. And then something that's different from most film fests. Most film fests have juries of professionals. We only have public awards, only audience voting. And we had that in the last years. And then we had a normal voting procedure where the audience would register and give stars. And now this year we tried something new. We try out Bitcoin as a source for prize money. One reason is before we always had prize money from the government of Hamburg, but they had to save, so we don't have that anymore. So we have to come up with a different source of prize money. So we thought of, using the voters instead. So the voters would pay money to the films, which would and then also go to the successful filmmakers. So it works like that. Every film, or each film has its own Bitcoin account number, which, imagine this with traditional banking, would be impossible. I mean, which bank would open 59 accounts for maybe just minuscule sum? And we just made that, yeah. We just opened 59 accounts. Every film has their own individual account. So if you go to the webpage, bitfilm.com, you see the film embedded. You have all the metadata, who is the director, when was it done, little synopsis, and you have this Bitcoin address. And if you like the film, if you want the film to win, wire some money. It can be just 0.000, yeah, it doesn't matter. Because if you really like the film, transfer 10 Bitcoins. That's completely all right. And the more Bitcoins the film gets and the more transactions, we have a mixture of both, then, the winners will take it all. I mean, not just one film, but the top 3 ranked films will get the Bitcoins that we generate that way. We have no idea if that works. Of course, it is a risk. Of course, we somehow, exclude people who have never heard of Bitcoin before. So part of our normal audience who are used to vote the old-fashioned way will probably be a little bit irritated in the first place. So we'll see. I mean, of course, for us, it's a way to promote Bitcoins, to make Bitcoins well known. We had always a lot of press in Germany and also worldwide. There was usually national TV. So we thought, why not use our festival as a tool to promote Bitcoins, because we like Bitcoins. Just like Jörg Platzer used his bar with burgers and beer, so journalists would write about it, and the audience would just stumble across it. So that's why we kind of abuse our festival as a tool to promote Bitcoin. And we'll see what comes out of it. That's not so important. If you happen to, in Bangalore we already did it, but if you're in a different city and want to organize your Bitfilm festival there, or just a Bitfilm evening, feel free to do it. We have this new concept of opening it up. And yeah, that's it. If you want to reach me, this is my email address, aaron@bitfilm.com, if you have any more questions. And I think now I really want to show you our Bitcoin film, which is another point where my Bitfilm activity somehow gets in touch with the Bitcoin activity in two ways, because we use this film also as a trailer of a festival, but actually it was made for this marketplace that you... Oh, not so fast, not so fast. I think we have to link it somehow, we have to switch it. Let me just say a few words to it. Well, we had this client, bitcoin.de, which is a marketplace where you can buy and sell bitcoins from other users. And they asked us to produce a film for them. And of course, the film cannot just say what's different in Bitcoin.de from others or what's so special. This film definitely had the big task to explain what Bitcoin is. Now, the little problem that we have, or not a big, but rather a challenge, there's a very famous film on the internet. I definitely recommend that film. It's called What is Bitcoin? It's also an animated film. It was also made in Germany. And it was clicked, I think, 1.5 million times on YouTube. It's an excellent film about Bitcoin. But it's not an advertising film for Bitcoin.de, of course. It's a general thing. So we needed to do more or less the same thing, but still not copy that film, but have something completely different. So what we suggested to this German client to just play with all kinds of German stereotypes, with mad scientists and crazy robots and heavy accents and, boring talk. Is it ready? So that's why this film has a strong accent. My English is not that bad, I hope. I was I dubbed this animated character. So I really did it on purpose, this. Full screen, probably? Yeah. So please enjoy Dr. Münzmacher. I want to go to the... okay.
Welcome. My name is Dr. Münzmacher. I'm an expert in the new digital currency Bitcoin. Unlike euros, dollars or other monopoly money, Bitcoins are not created out of thin air by a central bank. That means no inflation. Believe me, we had lots of inflation here in Germany and we never want that again. So, if there's no central bank, where do Bitcoins come from? Well, everybody can create Bitcoins by using a special software. But it's not easy, just like finding a gold nugget in a ton of earth. I would love to tell you all the details of the cryptographic algorithms behind it.
No, please don't bore your audience.
No, Hermann. I just want to explain the advantages. The amount of bitcoins is limited. That's why there can never be a bitcoin inflation. It's very cheap to transfer bitcoins from one part of the world to another, just like sending an email. Bitcoins are like cash. So if you want to pay for something, without any data-hungry monster knowing about it, bitcoins protect your privacy.
But don't forget to pay your taxes.
But the fact that bitcoins are like cash has one disadvantage. If your computer crashes, all your bitcoins will be lost. That's why we from Bitcoin Deutschland are offering a secure account for your bitcoins on our servers. Our platform is very safe and reliable. German technology. The main purpose of bitcoin.de is to buy and sell bitcoins from other users, not only in Germany but worldwide. And our software developers are working hard on more great tools for the future of money.
And then we will rule the world.
No, stupid. Those times are over. We want our customers to be happy and money to be sound and trustworthy, just like us.
Okay, yeah, that was a little Bitcoin production that we showed at the London conference and also on the web. Well, any questions to this? I mean, the festival or other Bitcoin-related activities that we've been doing? No, no more questions. Yeah. Or any other questions about Bitcoin? Yeah. Well, I know the answer, 42. but you have to put the question correctly. Well, what we could do, if you are interested... Oh, a question.
So maybe in the future we could see a situation in which the Bitcoin protocol is sort of deemed to be suboptimal, that maybe it has some security flaws, and how easy would it be for someone to design another protocol, and you could potentially have a world in which there are several, digital currencies which are all alternatives to.
May the best win, no?
Yeah.
I mean, if a better product comes that has better qualities than Bitcoin, there was a day when people did not use Google for search, but some other search, and then Google came up, and Google was so much better than all the other search engines, so everybody switched to Google without even a big advertising campaign. And this might happen, if somebody invents a better Bitcoin, better coin. And then everybody likes it, and everybody's convinced. We all switch, and we all forget Bitcoin, say, the good old days, and good old Satoshi, may he rest in peace. We don't know. I mean, that's the free market,
Do you want to talk about your last blog entry, which I think was about an amendment, a change to Bitcoin, right? That this young developer had done. It was on your blog. About
Yeah, I know what I've done.
You wrote an interview with this other developer.
I think most of the work I do on my blog is about interviews. So.
Okay, that's fine. Just the fact
But
there are...
to answer your question, there are about 4 alternative currencies. They're considered forks of the Bitcoin protocol. We have Solid Coin, Altcoin, Litecoin, Namecoin, and there's a bunch of others that are out there. In fact, there are active exchanges for them as well. They've got their own value. However, none of them have really been able to solve all the problems that Bitcoin has already solved. So unless they bring something new to the market, it's not really been picked up that well. You have your alternatives, people are using them, but there's nothing close to Bitcoin right now.
There may be some speculation on what might be the Achilles heel of Bitcoin.
These are personal opinions again. Right now, the biggest problem which we can see is the confirmation time that it takes. So it's not very practical as a medium of exchange to go and buy your daily groceries. If not, you're going to have to stand there for about an hour and wait for the confirmations to go through. There are ways that people are working around this, but once again, that is probably the only Achilles heel that I can think of. There's really no way to hack it. Governments can't stop it. But the best part is there's really nothing like this that has been around ever before, and there's no way to push a transaction across without giving a minimum amount of time to validate it with other servers. If not, different blockchains will start to emerge from the initial Genesis block. So there's really no way to solve these problems. This might be the only Achilles heel, but it's more of a restriction than a problem right now. People who can afford it can wait for an hour.
But I heard there was a hackathon in Berlin with people from various countries, and they addressed exactly that problem, and they say they have a solution. So let's see. What I would suggest that we now, enter the kitchen, storm the kitchen, grab the snacks and tea and whatever, and we chat a bit. And if some of you guys are interested to watch some films, it has nothing to do with Bitcoins whatsoever. It would just be kind of an add-on. If you just want to talk about Bitcoin, not one chat, that's fine. I mean, shall we make a vote for that? Who wants to watch films afterwards? Okay.
Whoever wants to stay back can.
Yeah. Okay. So let's have 50-minute breaks to chat and because then we should turn down the lights for the films, right?
Sure. After. Like as in we can.
Thank you very much.
So yes, I'd like to thank Aaron and the Bitcoin community here. I hope so. These folks, they keep meeting every alternate week. Every alternate week. And if any of you guys are more interested in all these practical issues in terms of, okay, who are the traders in Bangalore? How do I actually get paid in Bitcoins and stuff like that? Well, these are the folks to contact, and perhaps you could drop by for their meetings as well. And I think you're going to have some meetings at CIS as well? Right. Yeah. Okay, so, and if you'd be interested in knowing more about that, just come let me know so that we can send out a mailer to you guys before these meetings. Okay, and yes, thank you very much for that wonderful talk. And I do hope that a more vibrant Bitcoin community emerges here.